I didn't think I would ever be saying, you know, I live in Boise, Idaho. It's a pretty amazing trip that I've been on, and I want to share that with you. The reading is very apt because it talks about hospitality to strangers. Boy, people have been so friendly here and really helping me get situated. And I realized this even before I moved up here. I'd rented a place here, the place I'm in now, and I had to call and get the utilities turned on. So I called the water board, and I'm getting the water turned on. And the woman says, "Oh, you're moving here from California." And I was getting ready for, and she said, "Let me give you some tips on driving in the snow." And I thought, wow, this is the customer service agent, and she's, telling me how to drive in the snow. And that was my indication that people are just going to be incredibly friendly and incredibly helpful. So that's been my experience. And I want to talk today. This is going to be a very personal story, because I'm going to talk about this last year and how I got from here. But I'm going to put it in the context of the spiritual journey, and in terms of some things I've learned about the spiritual journey in general. So my talk has four sections, and they're very short. But the first section is, why is it so dark in here? The second is, to get to Idaho, you have to leave California. The third is, sometimes you just have to ask for directions. And the fourth is, welcome to Boise. Now get to work. So let me start with the first one. Why is it so dark in here? The spiritual journey starts in darkness. You don't have to get any further than Genesis to see that. The words of Genesis, the very first words in the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was formless and void. And the Hebrew is very beautiful there. The formless and void is tohu vavohu. The earth was tohu vavohu. And darkness was on the face of the deep. And that's the raw material of creation. Because the next line says, and the Spirit of God, Ruach Elohim, hovered over the waters. So even in the darkness, even in our creation myth, we start in darkness, and the spiritual journey starts in darkness. And that's, to look at that another way, is the dark night of the soul, the writings of the St. John of the Cross. And the term dark night of the soul gets bandied around, but it actually has a very particular spiritual meaning. And it has to do with the fact that to get to God, to get to connection and spiritual growth, you have to go through a period where it's just dark. It's just, you're disconnected. It's not a pleasant thing, but that's of necessity. And if I look back, let's say we're at, taking from January 2021, so a little more than a year ago, I was in a very dark place. We were entering the second year of the COVID isolation. And I was living in a teeny apartment in San Mateo, paying way too much money for it. And everything I owned was in that room. My work desk was there. I had moved out of my co-working space. So there's the work desk. The guitars are in another part of the room. My bicycle's there. My books, everything. And then these two neurotic cats of mine, and I don't let them out, or at least I didn't there, because it was too dangerous. So we're all packed in there cheek to jowl. And I wasn't doing very well. I was very depressed. And because of the isolation, and I wasn't taking care of myself. I was eating too much, and I gained a lot of weight, and I wasn't exercising. And so, and then on top of that, my brother died in January. And that was an existential slap. And I realized, as illogical as this sounds, I was safe from death as long as my brother was alive. It's like, my big brother. It's like, death, you got to go through my big brother to get to me. Well, death did, and so now I'm aware that, wow, time is short. This isn't working. I got to leave California. I gotta find a new place. I gotta recreate myself. And it was starting in darkness, just the way it's supposed to. So that's my first point, is that creation or the spiritual journey, it starts in darkness. So the second part is titled, To Get to Idaho, You Have to Leave California. And this has to do with the nature of the spiritual journey. So I want to make a distinction between different kinds of spiritual journeys. And the first is what you could call a pilgrimage. And in a pilgrimage, the emphasis is on where you're going. Everybody knows the pilgrimage du jour is the Camino, right? Everybody walks the Camino. I haven't walked the Camino. I'm surprised there's anybody here. I thought you'd all be out walking the Camino, but it's just, people have this extraordinary experience of going toward Santiago de Compostela, of that experience. And the minister of the church I'm in, I'll talk about the church. It's a Methodist church. He did the Camino recently. And he tells this great story about how every morning he went to mass, which he doesn't understand, in these little churches, and it was in Spanish. But I think that's, so he didn't know what was going on, but he got the basic idea that, God is good and the devil not so much. And, he tells a very funny story about that. But the pilgrimage is moving toward. Well, that isn't what I was doing. I was doing the other thing, which is moving away, what you can call an exodus. The word exodus means the road out. Odos is in Greek is road. That's where we get odometer from. And so it's a moving away. And of necessity, you have to say goodbye to things. You have to let them go. And so 2021 was this unique experience where, for me, where everything I looked at, everything I experienced, everyone I was with, I was aware that this was ending. That 45 years in California was coming to an end. And it was a kind of conscious leave taking. And I'll give you an example. I go to Pacifica. That's one of my favorite places. That's where I go for sort of spiritual renewal. I sit and listen to the ocean. I walk out on the pier and watch the people fishing. I take pictures and, get coffee at the Chit Chat Cafe. It's just a very special place for me. Well, every time I would go last year, it was like in my mind, this is one of the last times you're kicking them off, and at some point you won't be doing this anymore, Ed. And in fact, I'm not. And the hardest leave taking, of course, was the people. And I'm thinking particularly about Jim and Dave. Jim and Dave and I used to have coffee every Thursday for years. And so as the year progressed, we were aware of that. And it wasn't a sad thing. It was like, aren't we lucky to have this time? But it also was running out. And at some point it did. And so what was going on was a very conscious leave taking without any idea where it was going. I had no idea. So that's the second thing about the spiritual journey that I learned is you really have to let go. If you're going to wind up in, somewhere else, Idaho, you have to leave California. You have to leave where you are. So the third part of the talk is, sometimes you have to ask for directions. The process by which I decided to move here is a little hard to describe. I don't completely understand it, but what happened is, I'm in this dark place. It's January of 2021. I need to start researching. So I read everything about places to go and, high crime and recreational activities and cost of living. And then I took a trip. I went to Nashville and Knoxville and Asheville, Tennessee, or Asheville, North Carolina, and Greenville, South Carolina. Just all these places in that part of the country. And I knew I didn't want to live, in flyover country, and I knew I didn't want to live in the Northeast because it's too expensive. So it's kind of looking at that. And the more I looked, the more confused I got. And Boise was on the list because it's on all the lists of good places to go. But I wasn't excited about it. I'd come up here to visit Irene a few times, and I knew Boise, and it had not made any big impression on me. So I'm making myself crazy, spreadsheets and everything. And at some point, I just said, I got to put this down. I'm just not making any progress. I'm making myself crazy. So it was probably September or October of 2021 last year, where I just said, Ed, we're just going to set this down. We'll pick it up in January. Don't worry about it. Have your holidays. Just give it a rest, basically. Little did I know that was me getting out of the way of spirit, where something could really happen. And what happened is Thanksgiving. I had plans for Thanksgiving. I was going to go with my dear Italian friends, Mauricio and Anna, to a friend of theirs. It was going to be like 8 or 9 people. And I knew the 2 of them. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a great thing. Well, it kind of fell apart because of COVID. They had some concerns. They didn't know me and they wanted me to take a test when I got there. And I thought, that doesn't sound like Thanksgiving to me. They're looking at me as Typhoid Mary. I'm going to kill everybody in the room. So I just declined the invitation. So now it's a week before Thanksgiving and I've got no place to go. And I have to tell you, Thanksgiving is by far my favorite holiday. If you set up scales and you went Christmas, New Year's, Easter, 4th of July, and then you put Thanksgiving here, we go, I mean, I really find Thanksgiving to be a time where it's just the good things. You just eat and drink and be with people and are grateful. You're thankful for what you have. So here I'm a week from Thanksgiving, no place to go. So and I thought, well, I wonder what Irene's doing. We had kept in touch, but I wasn't aware of her day-to-day goings on. So I call her up and I say, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? Well, our family's getting together. Oh, that sounds nice. Well, she asked, what are you doing? Well, I actually don't have any plans. And I'm going, and come on, Irene. And finally I just said, can I come up? She said, sure, come up. So I got a plane ticket. I rented an Airbnb. Up I go for Thanksgiving. And we had this lovely family Thanksgiving, just what it's supposed to be. We gathered at her sister's house. She has 2 sisters up there. And there were I think there were 8 of us. Just a lovely afternoon. And remember, I wasn't going to Boise to scope the place out. I was going because I wanted a Thanksgiving. So I'm not evaluating this place. And then I stayed a couple extra days, and Irene and I did something I don't even remember. And I walked around a little bit, and I just got this nice vibe, just this nice. I'd go in a coffee shop, and people would start up a conversation. The neighborhoods are really nice. They have well-defined neighborhoods here that have their own character. I was staying in the Sunset neighborhood, which is where she lives. I'm in the Hollister neighborhood. So I like the idea of neighborhoods, but none of this was like, wow, this is the place. So Monday I get on the plane, and as I'm coming back, I just had this realization. It's like, that's where you're going to live. And I had this conversation with myself. It's like, what do you mean? What happened? I'm not sure what happened. But by the time we landed, I was moving to Boise. It was just this intuitive thing that happened. And if you want to look at a biblical precedent, you can think of Elijah, right? Elijah out on the mountain. Elijah's out on the mountain in 1 Kings, waiting to hear from God. And so, here comes this wind and it throws rocks everywhere and it blows it up. Well, that's got to be God, right? He's a big guy. He acts like that. So that's God. No, that's not God. Okay, here comes the earthquake. Well, that has to be God. No, that's not God either. Then there's a fire. Is that God? No, that's not God either. God is the still small voice when all that craziness stops. And I think that's what happened in me, is that I put it away and I stopped worrying about it. And so my takeaway about the spiritual journey is the spiritual journey has a destination, which may or may not be yours, but it is going somewhere, and you're going with it. And so here I am. I wound up in Boise. The 4th part of my talk and final part is welcome to Boise. Now get to work. Everybody's moved, right? You know what moving looks like. You have this giant pile of stuff, and you're not going to bring it all. And in my case, I had furniture that I bought on Craigslist and it was broken, and I got rid of that. And too many books, if there could be such a thing, but I didn't want to carry them all up here. And so you winnow it down, winnow it down to something. The movers come, they take your stuff, they bring it up here. Then I fly the kitties up here, and then I go get the truck and I drive up here. So I'm in Boise. It didn't take me long to figure out, maybe you can cut down the stuff you bring, but the person, me, that showed up in Boise, it was the same guy that left San Mateo. I brought everything with me, all my fears, all my everything. And I say that because there's a tendency to think about, there's a term in 12-step groups called a geographic, where, where you're isn't working and it's got to be the place. And so, I'm in Omaha, that's not working. I'll move to Las Vegas. What could possibly go wrong? That kind of thing. It's the land of milk and honey. And I'm thinking about that scene in Field of Dreams. Is this heaven? Well, no, it's Iowa. Well, same thing here. Am I in the land of milk and honey? No, I'm in Idaho. Idaho's just a place. Idaho's a place. California's a place. In and of themselves, they don't do anything. But what I mean is, I realized the real work had to happen here. The real work of getting healthy, of getting reconnected, of getting finding meaning in life. But what did happen is, the place I was working from, I now had room to move. And there's no better example than just look behind me. This is my house now. This is just the office and the kitchen and the dinette. There's a living room and 4 bedrooms, and it's less than I was paying in California. So I have room to spread out. And I have, like I told some of you, I have this great backyard where the kitties can go out. And obviously he's not on board with that, but this is sleep time for kitties. But for the first time since I've had them, they can go outside. And that warms my soul. I mean, I care about my kitties quite a bit, and they've been confined in all these places. And now suddenly they can just go in and out, and they're safe. But I am gardening now. I have a wonderful front yard that I'm just doing all kinds of things. I put in some flower beds and put in lighting along the walkway, and it's a great way to meet your neighbors, because they're all coming over and saying, "Wow, you're doing something. This looks really good." And for the first time in my life, probably, or maybe since I was back in a teenager in Hopewell, Virginia, I know my neighbors. I know my neighbors all the way around. I know them enough to talk to. The guy across the street is David. He builds decks, and he looks like he should be in ZZ Top. He has a long stringy beard. We do the guy thing, right? It's a kind of a quiet street. We walk in the middle of the street and we talk. We stand in the middle of the street and we talk. So just there's an expansive place for me now. I'm beginning to grow into it. And the church, I found this church. This was Irene, what's going to this church. And it's called Boise First United Methodist. But the real name, the name they like, is Cathedral of the Rockies. That's the other name. How good is that? Cathedral of the Rockies. Never mind that we're not exactly in the Rockies. There's a little offshoot of the mountains called the Sawtooth Mountains. But Cathedral of the Sawtooth Mountains doesn't sound that great. So it's Cathedral of the Rockies. It's a big church. It's the biggest Methodist church this side of the Mississippi. So a very different worship experience. And as we were getting going today, I just had this nostalgia for what we do at College Heights, and we do at Many Journeys. And boy, this is not that. This is 4 services and 50 to 100 people and the whole bit. But what it's done is it's given me opportunities to meet people. And some of Irene took a position with them after I moved up here. She took a position as the minister of faith life minister. And what that means is she's setting up small groups, and she's creating a newcomer program. And in the process of that, she had to redo the website. So she needed somebody to shoot some videos of some of their people. Well, guess who? I did that. And she needed somebody to start a men's group. So in the fall, I'm starting a men's group. And so there's just all these opportunities to expand into this. But the point I want to make is that the spiritual journey by itself doesn't do anything. It takes you somewhere, but then the work starts. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm doing the work, and I'm thriving in a way that I have not for years. And it's not because Boise is magical. It's because I went through this spiritual journey, and I came to a place which happened to be Boise, which happens to be in Idaho, that is giving me room to expand. And you know, that's it basically. You know, to summarize, what I would say is the spiritual journey starts in darkness. It requires a conscious leave taking of where you're from. The spiritual journey is going to take you where it wants you to go, not necessarily where you want to go. And when you get there, that's when the work starts. So that's my sermon. Thank you.